Hello everybody, my name is Andres Salazar, and you're watching The Art of Comics. Thank you very much for joining me in this wonderful evening. It is late, I don't know what time it is, 11 o'clock p.m. And I'm excited to talk to you guys about Nate Powell's book, published by Top Cow, called In the Empire. As you know, I just came back from Arkansas. I'm wearing the flag. This is my state flag that I lived in. I grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas. I went there last week on a trip to do research for my own story about Arkansas as a child in the 80s there. It is a trailer park, chicken fried southern fantasy tale, right? About a boy and his mother after divorce, moving out yonder in the woods, in the creeks of Little Rock, Arkansas, and trying to find their way through life, right? That's the pitch of Shangri-La Estates, my graphic novel. When I went there, I went to a comic shop. I went to a number of them. One of them was called Retrograde Comics. You guys are great, Retrograde. And at Retrograde Comics, I found this little book called In the Empire. Turns out, Nate Powell also grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas. And I didn't know that. And I was like, what is this about? And I looked about it, and it's about his life as a kid in Little Rock in the 80s. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to read this for a couple reasons. One, I like Nate Powell. And two, because, hell, this could be something that is very similar to what I'm already doing. Is there concern, you know? Top Shelf published this. Top Shelf would be someone I would be interested in communicating with. So, I had to get it. It's even signed by him. Look at that. Isn't that kind of fun? Okay. So, let's talk about this. First off, he wrote a book. So, I have not read all his stuff, but I read the one, Swallow Me Whole. Swallow Me Whole, I like his art style. It reminds me a lot of Blankets. Craig Thompson, right? Craig Thompson. It reminds me a lot of Craig Thompson. The brushwork, all that kind of stuff. I didn't really care for Swallow Me Whole. I understand why it's revered. I understand why it got a lot of acclaim. The subject matter with the grandma and the Alzheimer's and all that. I get it. I think it had some cool ideas in it. It just didn't grab me. But I did love March. Again, it's just the subject matter. It's because I'm really into race relations, stuff like that. I mean, I'm a Spike Lee type of guy, so that's my bread and butter. So if there's stuff about race, I'm all about it. And so March is my jam, right? I thought that, yeah, it's just, March is really, really good. So I dug this. And then I didn't know my boy here was from Arkansas, so I picked it up. So I'm not going to say I love all of Nate's stuff. I do like his art style. But let's go ahead and do a deep dive on In the Empire. And just kind of chat about the story, chat about the art, and all that kind of stuff. And then see what we think, okay? Let's go down. Ba-da-ba-bow. Okay, everybody, let's take a little look at this story. First off, I really like the dress of this. It's got a nice texture to it. This is a good hardcover and a price point at $20. You can't go wrong. So, good price point. You know, what's the page count on this? This has got to be in the 200s. You know, so about 200s pages, and it doesn't say. Nice hardcover. I like the design of it. It's got this cool, nice little texture. This is embossed. So, yeah, I dig this. The design of the book. We'll start there. I like the cover, good color, bow. And nothing really special about this here. I do like this little bit here. Let's get into In the Empire. So this becomes central. This if you can't tell what it is, it's a turtle that's been smashed, and this is going to be kind of a motif, an element to the story where it's symbolic of what this whole thing is, right? About war, about violence, unnecessary violence, needless violence, and kind of a grim look at things, right? So the story, first off, because it's black and white, he's able to really just do some great depth and some contrast work. I really think this guy sings with black and white, and in fact, you can tell that's what he uses, that's what he does, and I like it a lot. I also really dig these panels, and all his panel borders are going to be this kind of hatched out, rough stuff, and I really dig that a lot too. We start off with this little fantasy moment where we have Lee, the main character, is playing with his G.I. Joes. And when I first read this, I'm like, oh my gosh, right? What am I going to do? Because in my story, Shangri-La, the character is going to be playing with G.I. Joes. That's what you do. So I was like, oh my goodness, is this going to be so similar to my stuff? Well, guess what? No need to fear. This is completely different than my story, like in every way. So the setting is the same, but yeah, it is still different. Okay, so we got two parallel stories here, and we're gonna do a time jump. But basically, Nate's story, it starts off here in the early mid 80s. He's in Arkansas with Lee. Lee is the main protagonist. He is the surrogate, I would say, for Nate. This is his story, right? So Lee is fascinated with the military, with war, as most kids in the 80s were. His father was in the service. And so he's got, we establish early on, within the first couple pages, this is a classic kid who likes to play war, right? They're moving, though. So they're going to be moving neighborhoods, which is very traumatic. When I was a kid, we had to move. It freaks you out. It just turns your world upside down. So that is an element to this thing. But he's a kid who's kind of a solo, kind of a loner, is in his imaginary world playing with G.I. Joes. So far, so good. Kind of understand it. Again, check out these panel borders. I really like these. The contrast. This really sings in black and white. I think if it was in color, it'd be so different. So I really like that. And Nate he's good. I like the art. I like and I like the story. Good expressions. I think he's got this great ability to kind of turn on this cartoony, caricature moments, and then he can dial into like more rendered stuff. So he kind of mixes it up a lot. I love this because everyone had a little cigar box full of crazy things like Army Swiss knife, ninja stars. I just love that. It's like classic. So all this is just kind of setting him up. He's going on some little adventure outside. I totally remember all this. This all is just him having fun, just being a kid, right? He has old shell casings from his father's time. So while his father is trying to, and we don't really establish much the relationship. So the relationships we'll get into in a minute, but really it's just about him playing. We don't really have much going on with him and his father. His mother's really not in part of the picture. There's no siblings that we know of. So it's just really about him being a kid in this area, and kind of exploring Arkansas and exploring, the woods and the neighborhood and the trees and the, all that kind of stuff. That's just what you do. This is a great page, by the way. I like it for a lot of reasons. I don't know. I just dig this. I dig this here a lot. And this is kind of fun. Just kind of like little speed lines going down the road. Just kind of a fun way to do it. This is some of my favorite stuff here. Just these panels. This is great here. So, you could tell Top Shelf were like, yeah, dude, we'll take... he probably has some sort of a deal where it's like, hey, after the big books he's done, like March and Swallow Me Whole and Being Eisner, that kind of stuff, he just has like a whatever he puts out, they probably just pump it out. So we starting off these first few pages, just him. We get a sense of the setting of Arkansas, right? And he's even reading G.I. Joes. I mean, I even have a segment in my book about that. Now we're going to meet the next set of characters, which is Purdy. I think his name's Donnie. We'll see it in a minute. Purdy is the next kind of main character that we're going to kind of follow. And his life is a little different than Lee's. We got the twins, boys. So these are their little like gang, right? Their little like clubhouse gang. And we learn about Purdy. Purdy has a very different life. So there's going to be in the story this dichotomy with Lee and Purdy. Purdy's kind of the bully, kind of a more aggressive. But is it a front? We'll find out. And then the third main character in this story will be this girl here. She is, she will become the love interest, but right now I'm thinking she's like 1 or 2 grades older than Lee and Purdy. And her deal is with the turtles. We're going to find out that in a minute. In fact, that's great. I love this stuff here. So we've got these fantasy moments of the war, this imagination of tanks, things like that going through. He's reading about, World War II, things like that, imagining this other world. She is a kind of a naturalist, nature lover, and finds this turtle that's been bashed in, right? So she goes to try to figure out how to help it, and gets her parents involved, What can I do to save this turtle that's been hurt? And it looks like it's been hurt by mankind. Someone hit it, things like that. And that's going to be this motif of violence on the turtle is like violence of man. It's the violence of war. It's all that. So that's what this whole treaty is about, war. What is it good for? That kind of a deal. This is such a quick read. I read this whole thing in like less than an hour, or maybe an hour tops, something like that, because it's just a lot of visuals, not tons of dialogue. She's got a mom that's a nurse or something like that. So we're now gonna go into where and this is cool. This is another thing that in my story is like, he's imagining like Snake Eyes and Lady Jane are having little adventures and stuff. So he's kind of imagining this kind of these little moments while he's on the swing set, things like that. So again, this first 30 pages or so is just Lee having fun being a kid, right? We establish a little bit about Purdy. He's a jerk, with his little ruffian gang. And then we get the girl who is kind of a nature lover, okay? Loves animals. Now we get into kind of the next part after we've established that with, it was Donnie. I was right. Donnie Purdy. Where now we have Purdy and Lee are friendship. So now we're kind of into the next section of the story where we have this friendship, which is kind of somewhat thrust upon them with the parents and such. But, they both like war. Purdy a little more than Lee, perhaps. And we're going to see some of that aggression come out because of, his upbringing, being bullied, such like that. So, a little bit of a swatch there just to kind of spook you out. And now we see classic laser tag. We're going to see Purdy with his buddies, the gang, and Lee. They all got the laser tag kits on, but he's the only one with the gun. So they're just target practice, and he doesn't want to share. So it kind of sucks. So we're just establishing this, like, that's a great face there. This is mine. Establishing Purdy is obsessive, a bit of a bully, his way or the highway type of deal. And if necessary, if they all leave, fine. He'll be by himself as long as he's got his toys and such. So that's the way that is. And he gets beat up by his older brothers. And so now we see a little bit of the pattern. Why is he a jerk? Well, because he's picked on by his older siblings. Classic. By the way, I ate these freaking TV dinners all through the 80s, so I do kind of can understand that. Some of this really rings true for me. So we go a little farther in here. Yeah, we do kind of mention a little bit about comics, and we kind of established that Lee likes comics, not just G.I. Joe, but, he's talking about DC and Marvel and things like that, and comic shops, because they're talking about moving, and so if they move, he's going to have to go to a different shop, stuff like that. So we have a couple interactions with Purdy and Lee. They're having fun. They're playing in the woods, stuff like that. And then we see, this is now where we kind of see our big dilemma, which is Purdy and these boys are beating on these turtles. And they use them as, they throw them up, they whack them with the bat. Now, and I was reflecting, I never did that, but there were some mean freaking things that kids would do, and I was a part of back then as well. So we won't need to go into all that, but it wasn't with any mammals. I never heard of mammals, let's put it that way. But yeah, reptiles were kind of like fair game. I didn't do anything with the turtle, though. So yeah, we get a little bit of now we see that the twins are the ones here that are the ones that are beating things up. And Purdy, it's a little question mark, did Purdy ever do it? And we kind of get the idea that maybe Purdy never did. Even though he's kind of a tough kid, he never hurt the turtle. That's kind of the impression we get. We don't see it. That's what we kind of get that idea. They kind of battled out a little bit. So now, of course, the Lee sees this and sees that these boys are the ones that are hurting this turtle, and so he goes running around trying to figure out what to do. And this is where he connects with the girl and says, okay, there's a connection here. I know what's going on with the turtles. You know about this turtle. And this is actually really cool. I actually really like this a lot, where we see, like, he got paper. He just kind of like printed out these papers of their little notes passing to each other about like what to do. The prime suspects, who did this, how do you know? I know what happened to the turtles, that kind of deal. So they kind of work together, a little Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys kind of mission of finding out what's happening to the turtles, all that kind of deal. Then we kind of go into a little reconnaissance mission. She goes out in the woods. She finds the spot, and then actually the turtle that she had got out, because turtles get out all the freaking time, does not make it, and so gets run over. There's a death. That turtle dies. Super sad. And so I kind of feel like this story meanders a little bit here in the middle. And it's just that, it's not that I want to hop, but I just feel like it sets up some good tones and environment and that kind of stuff. I'm just not so sure about some of this middle part. And, we're doing 1, 2, just big panels, great art. It is moving the story, but it's like, I don't know. I just feel like it's not super. It's not plot driven. It's not, and it's somewhat character. It's just kind of meanders a bit. It's not moving at a pace. So I'm not so sure about that part of it. Anyway, that's my kind of thought. Now, Purdy and Lee wind up becoming a little bit closer buddies, or at least that's what they're attempting to do. There's like a sleepover. And then Purdy takes his comics away from him, you know, and you know he winds up he gets them back, but it's the friendship is very one-dimensional and kind of one-sided, you know. They watch Platoon, they fall asleep, it freaks them out. Again, a lot of war stuff, right? It's a lot about like, hey, this was cool. And you know what? That's the way it was. I mean, war is cool as a kid, you know, you think it's fun. So he gets his comics back, we see him. He goes to Purdy's game. Purdy's not good at physical stuff, you know, his parents and everybody yelling at him to be better. He's not that good. So Purdy is underachieved. He's bullied by his older siblings. You know, there's a little bit of instability there. Lee is kind of shy and all that kind of jazz, and he's into war too, but he's maybe not as damaged as Purdy is. Okay. They sold the house, so he's moving. They're kind of playing, and then some of the stuff is fun. It's just kids playing, right? And I like that. I like that a lot. Now part 2. Now he moves. By the way, he moves to another town. Part 2 now is a time jump. So now we're gonna jump in time. We're gonna move to. Does it say what year? Does it say how many years? Well, I know it's like, you know, Vanilla Ice is popular, so this has got to be like 89, I think, 90. It's either 89 or 90, something like that. So this is probably like 7 years or so in the future. So now she's like out of high school, in college area, you know, she's smoking. The boy is now older, but I think he's still in like school. Maybe he's in high school or something like that. So, you know, they're older now. There's a birthday party, and now we're gonna have this connection again. Here's that. I actually really like this. Like the lyrics of the song "Ice Ice Baby" by Vanilla Ice through the party. But now we see Purdy, and Purdy's being an ass, right? Purdy's like hitting him and flinging him around at the party and just being a total jerk. So we see that Purdy has kind of amped himself. Oh, he's at Wormwood High. So Purdy's a jerk, not surprisingly. And Lee is Lee. Purdy's into like paintball now, you know, the newest thing, war type stuff. He's doing ROTC. Right, and he doesn't graduate high school. Here's kind of a moment. Purdy is going to the military, right? We're assuming probably Army. So Purdy joins the Army, and that's fine, and that's kind of where the story now is going. So now we're diverging completely. Now we're gonna have Purdy's story in the Army and Lee's story here in Arkansas. Yeah, so there's some strange moments where we get some sort of a relationship with this girl here, like I guess a date from maybe someone he met at the party, but it doesn't really go anywhere. It's just kind of I'm not sure about what to do about this. It's just like, okay, and that's it, right? So I don't know if this little date here is supposed to juxtapose the military moments that Purdy's having in, you know, overseas. I'm not sure. I assume that's what it is supposed to do, but it seems a little out of place and a little clunky. Just to tell you my thoughts. This is all just me talking, dude. So I don't know. Next we have they're gonna get together here in a minute, and they're gonna he goes looks for a job, sees her. Oh, sorry, the girl's name's Sarah. Apologize. So Sarah and Lee. So he's applying for a job. Looks like she's the one that's going to be interviewing him. Happens to be there. They chit chat. He's looking at her butt, and they wind up going on a date. Start kissing, and bada bing, they're now going to be a little item, right? So they're an item, nice and cozy. It's dark, it's warm. What's going on the other side of the world with Purdy? Desert, just miserable. And what's worse, he's gonna hit a landmine. Jacks himself up, okay? Lost his arm, jacked his foot up, okay? So now Purdy is in even worse shape. Now we're in like Act 3 towards the end of the story, and I'm kind of, oh boy, I don't know what to think of the ending in this last section. It kind of reminds me of Habibi. If you read Habibi by Craig Thompson, that's a massive book. I didn't care for the end of Habibi. I felt like it turned into something else. It was this allegory for the environment, things like that. I don't mind some surrealism and some symbology and I don't mind when a story totally switches. But it's all about the execution. I'm just not so sure about this execution. And maybe someone said, well, you got to read it again. Maybe you got to pay more attention. Maybe there's more to this. And there probably is. But it didn't grab me as much as I wanted it to. He gets this, robot arm thing, which definitely looks more futuristic and like X-Men than it does reality. So this is where I'm saying, okay, now we're not really in reality. I don't really understand what's going on because the way they're talking about using this as kind of a weapon, and now he's some sort of like, he has a destiny and Operation Metropolis needs you. And so now it's like, okay, something's going on that's not real. Either this is in his head, it's just imaginary, or this is real and the world has these kind of things. I don't know. It's confusing. But basically, he's going to get yours. Get yours, Purdy. That's an order. So they're going to ship him back home and do some sort of a drill. It's I don't know. I don't know if I get it. Meanwhile, the couple are together. They're talking about, when they were little detectives, finding out about, who hit the turtles and, what are they going to do about that? Are they, how's that going to be resolved? Well, I do like these little moments of the mice talking about like the war and how humans caused all this havoc. It was kind of interesting. And there's a nice little moment here. I'm assuming it's reminiscing him and his father, playing and talking about war, and his dad just breaks it down and said, war is hell. Don't get it twisted, bro. And that's what the theme of this is, right? War is hell. And maybe in the 80s, we fixated it too much. We fixed the toys, all the stuff, for kids was about war, and really there's nothing fun about it. Maybe that's really the message of this. And I can accept that. But then now we get this thing where you have, tanks are being helicoptered into Little Rock, Arkansas. This is not fiction. I mean, this is not like make-believe. This is like happening from what the comic is telling us. This is happening. I think. Maybe it's not. But basically, they're coming in, doing a Blitzkrieg in the middle of Little Rock, Arkansas. These tanks, and this military group is doing some sort of a drill. Now, the couple, Sarah and Lee, see these kids who are out with the baseball bat, similar to the twins who were hitting the turtles back in the day, and they're like, hey, come back here, what's going on, right? So is this a retelling of the past with now the future? But all that's interrupted because now we have a tank. Maybe that's the violence of the kids with the baseball bat is now represented by this tank, that violence, because now we have this, from our understanding, reality, because this is not a dream sequence of this military operation doing some sort of drills, war games here in the middle of freaking Little Rock. Art's fine. I just don't quite get it. we don't really know. We do kind of go back and forth. We are going back to now the overseas campaign right before he blew his limbs off. And then we see that he didn't actually blow his limbs off. And then there's some questions here about like a Holocaust type of World War II imagery. And then we see both U.S. and Allied and Axis military groups kind of marching together. There's just some iconography that I'm just not sure what it's supposed to be setting up, right? Here, then we have this sequence where they decide, no, we're just going to freaking not fight. We're leaving. So instead of getting blown up, now Purdy and the twins are deserting the military. So a little confusion there for me. Flashback, we go back to that scene where Mom is introducing Lee and Donnie Purdy to each other. Then they have This Is All the Similar too, where they talk about, I like your dog tags, and they like drawing. So it's going back and forth a little bit. Yeah, I just don't get it. Then we have Purdy and Lee and Sarah all like, hey, what's up? Yeah, man, I'm here. What's going on? I'm doing training. For what? I don't know. It's an exercise, you know? And then they start chatting. Hey, man, don't do this. You can change this. All right, fine. He's now going to use his magic robotic arm and stop this one tank from entering the city, although there are another 50 tanks that have already, done it. So I don't really get this either. This is his moment of saying, I'm going to stop the military. I'm going to stop war. I'm going to, choose light over the dark side, I suppose. And then they all work together to topple the tank. Again, this must be kind of a dream. Don't get it. Is this, this is a great panel. Is this saying like, okay, youth of America, youth of the world, we can band together and stop war? Maybe. I don't know. I do like this too. I mean, so the images are really great. And now we have this kind of random scene where Purdy and they're kids again, and they see these soldiers. They're out here kind of playing hooky or on AWOL. So what's that about? What's this little AWOL scene? I'm not so sure. It's either beyond me, it's too cool for school, and I'm just not picking up what they're putting down, or something. All right. So now Purdy, Lee, and Sarah are all on the same team. Purdy's kind of renounced the military, but because he toppled over a tank, he's in trouble with one of the twins. And, they're going to get put in jail or what have you. And then it ends. And it ends with the turtle killer deal about that. And there's like an epilogue moment here where the new turtles have came, and they're eating and they're happy. And, of course, with the broken weapons, I'm assuming that's just to say life goes on and turtles are good and war's bad. But I liked it. I didn't love it, and I felt like the ending is just a little tricky. Endings are always hard, but I think he's trying something here. I think the statements are said. You get knocked over the head with what it's saying, right? I don't think there's any subtlety in that. I didn't feel the ending with Purdy, the tank, Little Rock, the robotic arm, all that stuff. I just, maybe he's now a G.I. Joe and that's all make-believe. I don't know. It's a little confusing. That said, it's $20. It's really well done. Maybe you'll love it more than me. I basically showed you the whole freaking book. So anyway, thanks a lot, you guys. I appreciate you guys watching my channel. Feel free to subscribe, you know, and comment below. Let me know what you guys think of the video and all that kind of stuff. And we will talk to you guys next time. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.